A new hope. The blaring proximity alert jolted Commander Zara Starborn awake. She leapt from her bunk, adrenaline already surging through her veins, and raced to the cockpit of her scout ship. The scanners showed an Imperium patrol vessel approaching fast. Zara cursed under her breath. This sector was supposed to be a dead zone. Just my luck, she thought wryly. At 35, Zara was already a veteran of the Long War, a conflict that had consumed the galaxy for as long as she could remember. The Terran resistance fought to free worlds from the iron grip of the Arcadian Imperium. Zara had dedicated her life to the cause, rising through the ranks to become one of the Resistance's top operatives. She had been on a solo recon mission, gathering intel on Imperium supply routes, when her ship's aging cloaking system failed at the worst possible time. The patrol vessel hailed her, demanding identification. Zara knew she had only one option. She went to full throttle and executed a series of evasive maneuvers, pushing her ship to its limits. The patrol vessel gave chase, peppering her shields with laser fire. Zara jinked and juked, trying to shake her pursuer, but the Imperium ship clung doggedly to her tail. As she desperately sought to evade the patrol vessel, a massive shape emerged from the void. It was an Imperium prison barge, a lumbering behemoth bristling with weapons emplacements. Zara's heart sank as she realized she was caught between the patrol ship and the barge's tractor beams. Suddenly, a searing lance of blue-white energy erupted from the barge, spearing the patrol vessel. The smaller ship exploded in a silent fireball. Zara watched in amazement as more energy beams crackled from the barge, carving deep gashes in its hull. It writhed like a wounded beast, internal explosions rippling through its bloated frame. Zara seized the opening and rocketed clear of the barge's range. As she looped around, she saw a small craft, barely more than an escape pod, blast clear of the disintegrating prison ship. Against her better instincts, Zara angled toward the pod. She scooped it up with a tractor beam and pulled it into her cargo bay, even as the prison barge tore itself apart behind her. In the cargo bay, Zara trained her sidearm on the pod's hatch as it cycled open with a hiss of hydraulics. A figure stumbled out, wreathed in smoke. As it straightened, Zara saw that it was humanoid, but definitely not human. The alien was tall and lean, with skin that shimmered like polished obsidian. Glowing patterns, almost like circuitry, traced intricate paths across its face and hands. Eyes that burned with an inner fire fixed on Zara. "Who are you? What just happened on that ship?" Zara demanded, her gun unwavering. The alien raised its hands in a placating gesture. When it spoke, its voice was a resonant baritone that seemed to bypass Zara's ears and register directly in her mind. "I am Kel'Zathar, of the Psion Collective. Or at least, I was. Now, I am the last of my kind." A wave of sorrow flowed from him, so tangible that Zara could almost taste it. Kel went on to explain that his people, the Psions, were an ancient race, possessed of vast mental abilities. They had been a peaceful civilization, content to explore the mysteries of the mind on their secluded homeworld. That changed when the Imperium discovered them. Coveting the Psion's powers, the Imperium launched a brutal invasion. The Psions fought back, but their mental abilities were no match for the Imperium's superior numbers and technology. In a final, desperate act, the Psions unleashed a psychic maelstrom that devastated their world and shattered their Gestalt consciousness. Kel, the sole survivor, was captured and imprisoned by the Imperium. They had been trying to break him, to harness his abilities for their own ends. "The cataclysm on the prison barge was your doing, wasn't it?" Zara asked, her gun lowering fractionally. Kel nodded. "I had to escape. The Imperium cannot be allowed to gain control over psionic energies. In their hands, it would mean the end of all free life in the galaxy." Zara considered this. The Resistance had long heard whispers of the Imperium's quest for the mythical psi-weapons. If Kel was telling the truth, those whispers had just become a deafening roar. "What will you do now?" she asked. Kel's fiery eyes met hers. I will fight. The Imperium must be stopped. But I cannot do it alone. I need allies, resources. A slow smile spread across Zara's face. Well, you just might have found some. Welcome to the Resistance. And with that, an unlikely partnership was born. A human soldier, battle-hardened but weary of endless war, and an alien mystic, the last remnant of a lost civilization, united by a common enemy. Together, they would light the gathering allies. The journey to the rebel base on Nova Prime was tense. Zara kept a wary eye on her alien passenger, still not entirely sure what to make of him. Kel, for his part, seemed lost in his own thoughts, his glowing eyes staring unfocused into the void. As they approached the planet, Zara hailed the base. Nova Prime, this is Commander Starborn. Requesting permission to land. I have a guest with me. There was a long pause before the reply came. Commander Starborn, you are cleared for landing pad 7. Be advised, security teams will be standing by. Zara grimaced. This was going to be interesting. The reception on the ground was about as warm as she expected. A phalanx of heavily armed soldiers surrounded her ship, weapons trained on the ramp. Zara descended first, hands raised. Stand down, she barked. He's with me. The soldiers hesitated, then parted as a tall figure strode forward. It was General Jax Valen, the grizzled commander of the resistance forces in this sector. Starborn, what the hell is going on? He growled. You disappear for weeks, then show up with an alien in tow. Zara met his glare steadily. Sir, this is Kel'Zathar. He's a Psion, and he has information vital to the war effort. Kel stepped forward, ignoring the guns pointed at him. General, I come to you as an ally against the Imperium. They have committed atrocities against my people, and now seek to harness our power for their own ends. This cannot be allowed. Valen eyed him suspiciously. And why should I trust you? Because, General, you have no choice. Kel's voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of steel in it. The Imperium grows stronger every day. Without my knowledge, you have no hope of stopping them. Valen bristled at that, but Zara intervened. Sir, I believe him. I've seen firsthand what the Imperium is capable of. We need every advantage we can get. The general looked from one to the other, then sighed heavily. Fine. But he's your responsibility, Starborn. If he puts one toe out of line, it's on you. As Kel was led away to be debriefed, Zara let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. It was a start. Over the next few days, Kel shared his knowledge with the Resistance leadership. He told them of the Imperium's plans, of the psionic research facilities hidden across the galaxy. He also warned them of the nascent abilities the Imperium's Psi-Corps operatives were starting to manifest. It's only a matter of time before they fully unlock the potential of psionic energy, Kel said gravely. If that happens, no force in the galaxy will be able to stop them. Valen leaned forward, his brow furrowed. So what do you propose? We need to strike at these facilities, destroy their research before they can complete it. And we need to gather allies, species with a stake in seeing the Imperium defeated. Zara nodded. The Karath, the Vosh, the Eldrin, they've all suffered under the Imperium's rule. They might be willing to join us, if we can prove we have a chance. And so, a plan was formed. Zara and Kel would embark on a mission to gather these potential allies, while resistance strike teams hit the psionic research facilities. Their first stop was Karathia Prime, homeworld of the insectoid Karath. The once proud warriors had been reduced to vassals of the Imperium, their fighting spirit crushed under the heel of oppression. Zara and Kel met with the Karath Queen in her underground hive. Kel used his abilities to show her visions of a future free from Imperium rule, where her people could reclaim their warrior heritage. The Queen, moved by these visions, pledged her swarms to the resistance cause. On Vosh, they found a species of avian humanoids, their wings clipped both literally and metaphorically by the Imperium's restrictions. Here, Zara took the lead, appealing to the Vosh's yearning for the open skies. She promised them the chance to fly free once more, and they too joined the growing alliance. The Eldrin were a harder sell. The ethereal energy beings had retreated into isolation after the Imperium's conquest, sealing their borders and refusing all contact. But Kel sensed a kindred spirit in them, a deep connection to the energies that suffused the universe. In a daring covert operation, Zara and Kel infiltrated the Eldrin homeworld. Kel reached out with his mind, touching the collective consciousness of the Eldrin. He showed them that isolation was no longer an option, that the Imperium's ambition threatened the very fabric of reality. Slowly, grudgingly, the Eldrin agreed to lend their considerable psionic might to the cause. With each new ally, the resistance grew stronger. But so too did the bond between Zara and Kel. What had begun as a partnership of necessity evolved into a deep friendship, and perhaps something more. They were two souls adrift in a galaxy at war, finding solace and strength in each other. Zara taught Kel the ways of the physical world, of courage and camaraderie forged in the heat of battle. Kel, in turn, showed Zara the marvels of the mind, the untapped potential within every living being. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with. A soldier and a mystic, a union of body and mind, ready to take the fight to the heart of the Imperium itself. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the stars. But even as they prepared for the battles to come, a darker shadow loomed. In the heart of the Imperium's most secret research facility, a team of Psy-Corps operatives made a chilling discovery, one that threatened to tilt the balance of power in the Imperium's favor forever. So ends Part 2. The story continues to build with Zara and Kel gathering allies for the resistance while hinting at the growing bond between them. The stakes are raised with the revelation of the Imperium's impending breakthrough. The psionic key. In the depths of the Imperium's most heavily guarded research station, a team of scientists worked feverishly. They were the best and brightest of the Psy-Corps, tasked with unlocking the full potential of psionic energy. At the heart of the lab stood a towering machine, a labyrinth of gleaming metal and pulsing conduits. This was the Psi-Amplifier, the culmination of decades of research. With it, the Imperium hoped to create an army of super-soldiers, each wielding the power of 1,000 minds. But there was a problem. The machine was unstable, the energies it harnessed too raw, too chaotic. They needed a key, a focusing agent to bring the power under control. And they had just found it. News of the discovery spread like wildfire through the Resistance's intelligence network. Zara and Kel were summoned to an emergency briefing. General Valen's face was grim as he laid out the situation. Our spies in the Imperium have uncovered a reference to something called the psionic key. Apparently, it's an artifact of immense power, dating back to the ancient Psion civilization. Kel's eyes widened. The key of Kazdar. It was lost during the fall of my homeworld. If the Imperium finds it. Zara finished the thought. They'll be unstoppable. The general nodded. Exactly. Which is why you two are going to beat them to it. The mission was simple in concept, but daunting in execution. Zara and Kel were to travel to the ruined Psion homeworld, locate the key, and bring it back to the Resistance. They set out immediately, their small ship slipping through the Imperium's blockades and patrols. As they approached the planet, Kel grew increasingly agitated. I can feel it, he whispered, his eyes distant. The psychic scars of my people's last stand. The pain, the fear, it's overwhelming. Zara placed a hand on his shoulder, offering silent support. She couldn't begin to imagine what it must be like for him, returning to the site of his civilization's destruction. They landed in the ruins of what had once been a great city. Towering spires of crystal and metal reached towards the sky, now blackened and twisted. The streets were littered with the detritus of war, the bones of the fallen mingling with the wreckage of once mighty war machines. Kel led the way, following the psychic echoes of the key. They picked their way through the rubble, every shadow a potential threat. As they delved deeper into the ruins, Kel began to share more of his people's history. He spoke of a golden age of learning and enlightenment, of great minds linked in a harmonious psychic symphony. But he also spoke of hubris, of the dangers of reaching too far, too fast. In our arrogance, we thought ourselves invincible, he said, his voice heavy with regret. We never dreamed that our powers could be turned against us, that our greatest strength could become our ultimate weakness. Zara listened, her heart aching for him. She realized that Kel carried the weight of his entire species' fate on his shoulders. Finally, they reached the heart of the city, a vast plaza dominated by a towering statue. It depicted a psion, its arms raised as if in supplication to the heavens. Kel approached the base of the statue, running his hands over the inscriptions carved there. "This is it," he breathed. "The key is here." But as he spoke, a searing bolt of energy streaked from the shadows, narrowly missing him. Zara spun, her rifle at the ready, as a squad of Imperium Psi-Corps operatives emerged from the ruins. At their head was a figure clad in black armor, a cruel smile on his face. "You've led us on quite the chase, Psion," he called out. "But now, the key will be ours." Zara and Kel fought side by side, her rifle and his psionic blasts holding the Imperium forces at bay. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. As the battle reached its crescendo, Kel made a desperate play. He reached out with his mind, tapping into the latent psionic energy that permeated the ruins. With a cry of effort, he unleashed a shockwave that sent the Imperium troops flying. But the effort left him drained, barely able to stand. The Imperium commander, seeing his chance, lunged forward, his psi-blade crackling with energy. Zara intercepted him, her rifle abandoned for the hilt of her own energy blade. They clashed in a whirlwind of strikes and parries, the ruins echoing with the sizzle of clashing blades. In the end, it was Kel who made the difference. With a last surge of strength, he reached out with his mind, finding the chink in the commander's mental defenses. The commander stumbled, his focus broken for just an instant. It was all Zara needed. Her blade found its mark, and the commander fell. But the victory was short-lived. As they raced to the statue, intent on claiming the key, a massive explosion rocked the plaza. The Imperium, it seemed, had no intention of letting the key fall into resistance hands. If they couldn't have it, no one would. When the dust cleared, the statue lay in ruins. Of the key, there was no sign. Battered and bruised, Zara and Kel limped back to their ship. The mission had been a failure. The key was lost, and with it, perhaps their best chance at defeating the Imperium. But as they tended to their wounds, a new determination settled over them. The war was far from over. They had lost this battle, but they would not lose the war. As the ship lifted off, leaving the ghosts of the Psion homeworld behind, Zara reached out, intertwining her fingers with Kel's. "We'll find another way," she promised. Kel nodded, his eyes burning with a fierce light. "Yes," he said. "We will." The stars beckoned, and they answered the call. The fight continued. So ends Part 3. The quest for the psionic key ended in failure, but Zara and Kel's resolve remains unshaken. Their journey has taken a darker turn, setting the stage for the trials to come. Into the Shadowlands. The loss of the psionic key was a bitter blow for the Resistance. Without it, the prospect of defeating the Imperium seemed more distant than ever. But there was little time to dwell on the failure. The war continued, and with each passing day, the Imperium's grip tightened. Zara and Kel threw themselves into the fight, leading raid after raid against Imperium outposts and supply lines. They became the face of the Resistance, a symbol of hope for the oppressed and a nightmare for their Imperium foes. But their very success made them a target. The Imperium, stung by their losses, doubled its efforts to capture the elusive pair. Bounties were placed on their heads, entire fleets tasked with hunting them down. It was only a matter of time before their luck ran out. It happened on a remote world in the Outer Rim. Zara and Kel were leading a mission to sabotage an Imperium munitions factory when they were betrayed. A mole within the local resistance cell sold them out, and they walked straight into an ambush. In the chaos of the firefight, Zara and Kel were separated. Zara, pinned down by heavy fire, could only watch helplessly as Kel was overwhelmed, disarmed, and dragged away by Imperium troops. The Imperium wasted no time in crowing about their victory. Kel's capture was broadcast across the galaxy, a blow to resistance morale and a warning to any who would defy Imperial rule. They took him to the Shadowlands. The Shadowlands. The name alone was enough to strike fear into the hearts of even the bravest resistance fighters. It was a place of darkness and despair, a hellish prison world where the Imperium sent those it deemed the most dangerous, the most subversive. No one knew what horrors awaited those unfortunate enough to be sent there. Those who went in never came out. It was said that the very air of the Shadowlands was toxic, that the planet itself fed on the misery and pain of its inmates. For Zara, there was no question. Kel had risked everything for the resistance, for her. She would not abandon him to the Imperium's tender mercies. Gathering a small team of the Resistance's best and bravest, she set out to do the impossible, to infiltrate the Shadowlands and bring Kel back. The journey to the Shadowlands was fraught with peril. The planet was heavily guarded, ringed by layers of defenses and patrolled by the most advanced ships in the Imperium fleet. But Zara was undeterred. With skill and daring, they slipped through the blockades, evading detection by the barest of margins. As they approached the planet's surface, they got their first glimpse of the horrors that awaited them. The Shadowlands was a wasteland, a bleak expanse of twisted metal and toxic sludge. The very ground seemed to writhe and pulse, as if alive with some malevolent presence. They set down in the shadow of a massive structure, a nightmarish fusion of prison and factory. Towering walls of black metal soared into the sickly green sky, bristling with gun emplacements and shimmering with force fields. This was where they held Kel. Somewhere inside that hellish labyrinth, he was suffering, enduring the Imperium's attempts to break his will, to turn him into a weapon for their cause. The thought filled Zara with a cold, implacable fury. She would tear this place apart, stone by stone, to get him back. Infiltrating the prison was a nightmare of stealth and violence. Zara and her team moved like ghosts, striking from the shadows, leaving a trail of broken bodies in their wake. But even as they fought their way deeper into the complex, Zara could feel a growing sense of unease. Something was wrong here, more so than the obvious horrors of the place. There was a presence, a dark intelligence that seemed to watch their every move. They found Kel in a chamber deep in the heart of the prison. He was suspended in a web of glowing energy, his body racked with pain as the Imperium's mind probes burrowed into his psyche. But even in his agony, Kel was not broken. As Zara burst into the room, he lifted his head, his eyes blazing with defiance. With a surge of psionic energy, he shattered his bonds, sending his tormentors flying. For a moment, Zara and Kel could only stare at each other, the weight of all they had endured heavy between them. Then they were in each other's arms, holding on as if they would never let go. But their reunion was short-lived. Alarms blared throughout the complex as the Imperium rallied to prevent their escape. Zara and Kel fought side by side once more, a whirlwind of blade and psionic fury, carving a path to freedom. But as they neared their ship, disaster struck. A stray blast hit the fuel tanks, sending the craft up in a ball of flame. They were trapped, cut off from escape. Zara looked to Kel, seeing her own grim resolve mirrored in his eyes. They would not go down without a fight. But as the Imperium forces closed in, Kel made a decision. Reaching deep within himself, he unleashed a maelstrom of psionic energy, a swirling vortex of power that swept out in all directions. Zara watched in awe as the Imperium troops were flung aside like leaves in a gale, their weapons and machines crumbling to dust. But she also saw the toll it took on Kel, saw the way his body seemed to wither and fade with each passing second. "Go," he whispered, his voice a thin rasp over the howl of unleashed energy. "I can't hold this for long." Zara shook her head fiercely, tears stinging her eyes. "Not without you." Kel smiled, a sad, gentle smile. "You have to. The resistance needs you. The galaxy needs you." He touched her face, his fingers leaving trails of shimmering light. "I will always be with you, Zara Starborn. In here." His hand rested over her heart. And then he was gone, his body dissolving into a swirling mist of light and energy. The vortex collapsed, and with it, the last of the Shadowlands' defenses. Zara stood alone amongst the ruins, her face streaked with tears, her heart shattered. But as she looked out across the blasted landscape, she felt a new resolve settle into her bones. Kel's sacrifice would not be in vain. She would take up his fight, carry on his legacy. The Imperium would pay for what they had done. This, she swore by all the stars in the sky. With heavy steps, she turned towards the future, towards the war that still raged beyond the Shadowlands' bleak horizon. The fight was not over. It had only just begun. So ends Part 4. The daring rescue mission ended in bittersweet victory, with Kel sacrificing himself to ensure Zara's escape. The stage is set for the final confrontation, as Zara, fueled by love and loss, prepares to lead the resistance in one last stand against the Imperium. The sacrifice. In the wake of Kel's sacrifice, Zara was a changed woman. The loss of her love, her partner in all things, had carved a hole in her heart that could never be filled. But it had also hardened her resolve, tempering her grief into a steely determination. She threw herself into the fight with a fury that bordered on the reckless. She led mission after mission, striking at the Imperium with a ferocity that sent shockwaves through their ranks. Some whispered that she had a death wish, that she sought to join Kel in the stars. But Zara had no intention of dying. Not yet. Not until the Imperium had paid for its crimes. The resistance, emboldened by her leadership, rallied around her. They struck deep into Imperium territory, targeting key infrastructure, disrupting supply lines, and fomenting rebellion on occupied worlds. For a time, it seemed as if the tide of the war might be turning. The Imperium, stretched thin by the Resistance's attacks, began to lose ground. Whispers of hope began to spread amongst the oppressed peoples of the galaxy. But the Imperium was far from beaten. In the heart of their empire, the Psi-Corps continued their twisted experiments, delving ever deeper into the mysteries of psionic power. And now, with the knowledge gleaned from Kel's capture, they were closer than ever to their goal. News of the Imperium's latest atrocity reached the Resistance through their network of spies and informants. The Psi-Corps, in a brutal display of their growing power, had utterly annihilated a rebellious planet, wiping out its entire population with a single, devastating psionic blast. The shock and horror of this act reverberated throughout the galaxy. Many in the Resistance began to lose hope, to believe that the Imperium's victory was inevitable. But Zara refused to give in to despair. She called a gathering of the Resistance's leaders, a secret conclave on a remote, uninhabited world. There, she laid out her plan. It was a gambit born of desperation, a last, daring strike against the heart of the Imperium itself. They would assemble their entire fleet, every ship and fighter they had, and launch an all-out assault on the Imperium's capital world. At the same time, a small, elite team led by Zara herself would infiltrate the Psi-Corps main research facility. Their objective, to destroy the Imperium's psionic amplifier, the source of their terrible power. It was a plan fraught with risk. The odds of success were slim at best, and the cost in lives would be staggering. But what choice did they have? To do nothing was to doom the galaxy to an eternity of servitude and fear. And so, with heavy hearts and grim determination, the Resistance set their plan into motion. The journey to the Imperium's capital was a harrowing one. The Resistance fleet, cobbled together from 100 different worlds, was a ragtag assemblage of ships and crews, united only by their shared hatred of the Imperium. Zara led them from the bridge of her flagship, a sleek, deadly vessel that had once been Kel's pride and joy. As they neared their target, she reached out with her mind, seeking the familiar touch of Kel's thoughts. But there was only silence, a void where once there had been warmth and light. Zara steeled herself, pushing aside her grief. She had a job to do. They all did. As the fleet dropped out of hyperspace on the edges of the Imperium's home system, they were met with a sight that chilled them to the bone. Arrayed before them was the might of the Imperium, a vast armada of ships bristling with weapons and shielding. For a moment, Zara felt the icy fingers of doubt clutch at her heart. How could they hope to prevail against such power? But then, from the depths of her being, she felt a stirring. A warmth, a light that grew and spread, suffusing her with strength and certainty. Kel. He was with her, even now. His love, his faith, his sacrifice, they were a part of her, a flame that could never be extinguished. With a cry of defiance, Zara gave the order to attack. And the battle was joined. It was a confrontation unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The Resistance fleet, outgunned and outmatched, fought with a savage, desperate courage. They swarmed the Imperium's defenses, darting in to strike and then retreating, bleeding their foes with 1,000 cuts. At the heart of the maelstrom, Zara and her team fought their way to the surface of the capital world. They battled through the streets, the very air around them crackling with psionic energy as the Imperium's defenses sought to repel them. But nothing could stop Zara. She was a force of nature, a whirlwind of blade and fury, cutting down any who stood in her path. At last, they reached the Psi-Core facility. As her team engaged the defenders, Zara fought her way inside, carving a path to the heart of the complex. There, she found herself face to face with her nemesis, the leader of the Psi-Core. He was a twisted, malevolent being, his body warped by the very energies he sought to control. "You're too late," he sneered, his voice a sibilant hiss. "The amplifier is complete. With it, I will reshape the very fabric of reality itself. I will be a god." Zara said nothing. She simply raised her blade and charged. The battle was titanic, a clash of wills and weapons, of flesh and steel and searing psionic energy. The amplifier pulsed and thrummed, its power growing with each passing second. Zara fought with everything she had, every ounce of skill and strength and sheer, stubborn determination. But it wasn't enough. The Psi-Core leader was too strong, his command of the psionic energies too complete. Battered and bleeding, Zara fell to her knees. The Psi-Core leader loomed over her, triumph etched on his inhuman features. "And so it ends," he gloated. The last, feeble gasp of resistance, snuffed out like a candle. "A fitting end for dash." His words cut off in a choked gurgle. His eyes widened in shock and pain as a blade of shimmering energy erupted from his chest. Behind him stood Kel. Wreathed in an aura of shimmering light, he seemed more than human, a being of pure energy and will. "Impossible," the Psi-Core leader gasped. "You're dead. I killed you myself." Kel smiled, a sad, gentle smile. "You can't kill what I am," he said softly. "What we are." He looked to Zara, his eyes filled with a love that transcended life and death. "Together," he said. "One last time." Zara rose to her feet, her pain and fatigue falling away. She took Kel's hand, and together, they turned to face the amplifier. They reached out, not with their hands, but with their minds, their hearts, their very souls. They poured everything they were, everything they had ever been, into the maelstrom of psionic energy. And the amplifier shattered. The explosion was cataclysmic, a searing, blinding burst of light and heat and force. It swept outwards, consuming the Psi-Core facility, the capital city, the entire planet. In the skies above, the Resistance fleet watched in awe as a second sun bloomed into existence on the planet's surface. They saw the Imperium's fleet, caught in the blast wave, crumple and dissolve like leaves in a flame. And they knew, with a certainty that rang in their very bones, that it was over. The Imperium was no more. In the heart of the maelstrom, Zara and Kel clung to each other, their bodies dissolving, their essences merging into the psionic storm. They had given everything, sacrificed everything, for this moment. As the light consumed them, Zara felt a sense of peace, of completion. She had found her purpose, her place in the universe. And she had found love. A love that would endure, that would echo through the ages, long after the stars themselves had faded to dust. Together, Zara and Kel became something more. Something eternal. A light in the darkness, a hope that could never be extinguished. And across the galaxy, in 100,000 worlds, a cry went up. A cry of joy, of relief, of newfound freedom. The tyranny of the Imperium was ended. The galaxy was free. And it was all thanks to the sacrifice of two lovers, two heroes, who had given everything to light the way. The Starborn legacy would endure, a shining beacon of hope and courage, inspiring generations yet to come. And somewhere, in a place beyond time and space, Zara and Kel looked upon their handiwork, and smiled. The end.